No, you can listen to me. So, well, my name here is Francisco. People knows me as Klondike. This person there, it's Matt. They know him as Promethean Fire. And that's Luca. Yes. He is known as Lucero. And we are some of the members of the Eudev team. I mean, we are, if I recall correctly, 6 or 7 people now. Yeah, 8, sorry. And well, most of them couldn't come because most of them are based on the use. So well, that sucks. So, what are we going to talk now? It's what we did, why we did it, and why are so stupid ourselves, not you. So, so first thing we would make to make clear is that okay, so first thing we want to say is what a UDEP is not. And the first thing we want to make clear, it's not a hate-based forum. We invited Leonard, Case, and Greg to come here for a reason. I have something for them.
Yes. It's not a bomb.
It's not a bomb.
No. It's not poisoned either. No, not a fork either.
This, my friends, is for you. Way of saying you thanks for developing System D and UDEP.
Thank you for giving us cause of this talk, right? Yes.
It's our way of trying to say you thanks, and we don't hate you, really. I mean, we have nothing against you. We might make bad jokes, but that's it. It's just bad jokes. So, what else aren't we? Well, we are not an attempt to make Gen 2 users switch. Greg there probably knows about that as much as we. Gen 2 is usually about choice. We have this thing called use flag, which means you can even choose what your package will be built with. And as such, we understand perfectly that users might want to use Udeb instead of Udeb, and they must be able to do so. And we like them being able to do so. It's good for everybody. So, it's also not a lot of crazy coding. Well, it used to, but not anymore. Right now, we are doing quite extensive code reviews when we are working on it in order to prevent the insertion of bugs and stuff like that. And usually a commit has to be reviewed by at least one other UDEP developer. And if it's a quite important commit, it's necessary at least 2 reviews before it's accepted. So in that aspect, we are doing our best to make, well, good code at least. It's not untested code. We try our best the code we do before we even publish it. Because we know that a bug in UDEP can be a serious problem because it can mean a user cannot boot the system, for example. That could be something really bad. It's not a Gen 2 only thing. If there is any other distribution developer around here that wants to join us, he can do so. If you want to use this on your distribution as an alternative to UDEP, you can do so. And if you have any bugs that are related to UDEP on anything not Gen 2, please fill them. We will try to fix them, really. And yeah, it's not a closed project, indeed. If anybody wants to join, he's welcome to do so.
So this is just a few of the people that have committed to maintaining Eudev and just making it work. We have Luca, right there, Lucero. I tried to get Anthony Bastille, Lunas, to come here, but he's teaching right now, unfortunately. He's been doing a lot of the work on the build system. He refactored the makefile and stuff like that. We have Francisco Klondike already. AXS, I don't believe that he made it as well. Matthew, hi. Tony Vroon, he unfortunately could not make it either, and Richard is actually with Anthony as his student. So, yeah, the way these things work.
Okay, so we told you what is not, which is the general direction, meaning, okay, we took this code, we tore it apart, we put it back together. What we are going to do with that? The idea is, well, the usual stuff, more or less. We want something that is simple, clean, and possibly weather-edit, so you can read it and your eyes won't bleed. We try to stick to the standards, meaning that we try to get rid of everything that is not exactly C, like glib extension or something that is quite specific, but you can do without. So Eudev can build with like clang on ulibc or something like this. Some people need that, we provide that, and well, most of the people involved are sort of interested in this kind of provide alternative. So an alternative libc should work with, well, our project.
Yeah, ulibc, for instance, does work.
Yes, or even muscle, more or less. Then the other direction, we try to keep everything as separate as possible. So if you want to mix and match, you can. So we try to provide, yes, support for all kernels, support for all way to write rules. When it's possible, we do. So if you have something that is a legacy system, you cannot, well, update the kernel, or it's quite an hassle to update all the rules, then we provide you a way to survive. Pretty much that's the generic idea.
Right.
Oh, well. So, short term, libc agnostic. There are lots of glibc specific code. We try to remove them, replace it. Sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's, well, requires a bit of more effort, but we are trying. Compiler agnostic. Okay, we still need a C99 compiler. That means that, well, you have not that many opportunities, but the main one are supported. Yes?
Well, yeah, when Microsoft Visual C supports C99, so that's most part of the testing.
Okay. Kernel architecture agnostic means that, okay, we got new goodies with the new kernel, but we know people that are struck with vendor branch that are not updated. And so we try to support them. File system layout agnostic. Okay, we got lots of people that have a large deployment that use some kind of strange or weird layouts. We try to support them. It's not just using Eudev that will magically solve all your problems, but if something is not broken before, still our version won't warn you or do stuff that prevents you to boot. We try to, yes?
I'll just read it. So the question was, what are we doing different in that regard?
Well, I don't remember which version more or less struck some user like a Thunder because they force you to do something. Actually, you won't be able to complete the boot because you need some specific feature. Yes?
I mean, you listed that separated /user was something you want to support, but we supported. So I don't know what that's you're saying there, because upstream Eudev does support that just fine.
It has forever.
And it has forever, and nothing changed there.
We got records, we had a look, and it was something something like a simple branch.
It's not about what people said, it's what did you do?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to tell you what we are going to do with values and what we have already done. The first thing we did was making a package that could work well in Gen 2. That was not your fault. That was Gen 2's package's fault. Now Eudev works well with bar user, and that's because the things we have learned whilst doing Eudev have also been useful for the Eudev developers. But in the future, we try to improve a little bit on that aspect. I mean, we want to, for example, be able to mark rules as needing particular mount points and listen to the kernel to wait until they are mount. So we can wait until before we apply that rules until the mount points are already there.
Do you say you wait for UDEF rules to complete?
Okay. Can you repeat the question?
So you want to run UDEF and /user is not mounted.
What chocolate?
And yeah, and then you have UDEF rules which want to start a tool in /user, but it is not yet mounted. What do you do?
Well, our objective is keying that rule so we can apply it once bar user is mounted. You skip a key of the rules we cannot apply yet because there is stuff that they need that is not there, and then apply them. We will execute them all at once the bar user is mounted, yes. Huh? Actually, you can, yes, out of order. Well, actually, it will be in order with other rules that need bar user, but not with rules that need bar only. So we also have want to do an init-RD agnostic UDEP that goes back to the user stuff. As in, you won't need an init-RD to mount your bar user if it's separated and stuff like that. Yeah, actually, it's not. No, actually, it's true. I mean, the problem about needing an init-RD, it's not a UDEP distro, UDEP problem. But if there is no init-RD and there is a strange layout, like a separate bar user, we need to try our best in order to fix it.
That's a packaging issue. It's not a UDEF issue.
Oh, yeah, it's a packaging issue, maybe. But yeah.
To point out, the majority of these are the issues with the Gen UDEV packaging. It is not with the source code of this project. Now, forking, so you're going to fix the majority of these in your e-build.
Have a chocolate. So, honestly, the separate user issue really just confuses the point. It's a minor, right, it's a minor separate thing. There are many reasons why we did this other than the whole separate user reasoning.
So what was the major reason?
So what was the rate? Yeah. So what was the major reason for the forking? It's in other slides.
Actually, probably the best reason we have for the fork It's learning. No, no, no. I said learning, not Leonard. My English is quite crappy. Sorry about that. So what we are trying to do is learn more about Eudev and Udep in particular. I mean, we have learned a lot just by forking the stuff, doing crazy commits, removing stuff that we shouldn't have removed. Because when removing pieces, you see, oh, it's not working because of that.
So the issue that I have with Eudev is really not that you guys fork. You can do whatever you want. I have is kind of that you point out these things as if systemd wouldn't support that, but systemd like systemd/Eudev supports separate users like totally fine. It supports init or agnostic stuff just fine, and all these kind of stuff. Like it's like that. The slide doesn't make much sense. It's like I don't know. It's full of FUD about systemd upstream.
Well, actually, I don't read their non-UDEP's objectives. I'm reading
Reason to fork, right? When-
Yeah, and see it and just discuss. Those are the short-term objectives for us. Probably they are shared about. It's working? Okay. So those are our short-term objectives. It's not why we did the fork. So that's more or less, okay, we are trying our best to get to this point. If it's a problem of packaging, it's a problem of having the default configure, biting you or not, depending on what you want, further later. Well, those are our objectives. If your question is, why the hell you did fork that, it's more or less that. Okay, we can, yes. We do, yes. We want to learn that. We want to figure out exactly what the hell is about Eudev that is so strange or so exoteric, so just 3 people here knows that. Good, we try. And that's it. The problem is that too many people got this kind of strange expectation that we will defeat the evil overlord right here. No, we are just learning. And this is just a pet project that some people decide that was huge, important, and whatever. It's just our pet project. We are doing our best to achieve some objectives. We are trying to, actually, well, the first point is learning. So we do learn. We will probably break some system if somebody is so foolish to use it, but I mean, if somebody decides to use whatever software that is not exactly ready for the prime time, they are just looking for it. So we are not, as I said from start, an hate fork, or we have some kind of interesting idea about conquering the world, at least not yet. We are just experimenting stuff. The E for Eudev could be experimental. And we are trying our best. We are trying to be as coordinated and as well regular about what we are doing. We try to use the best practice to not make a mess. Obviously, the code itself is complex, so we happen to tear it off just because we want something simple to see, and then maybe put back it together once we understand exactly what the code is doing or not doing. And pretty much that is. So those are our short-term goals. Maybe some is just a matter of packaging. Some others are, well, a bit more encompassing, since supporting exotic system or not standard system is usually fun. You still learn about it. And that's it. So those are our short-term goals. And one is to keep everything as simple as possible. Quite stupid, we know. And if somebody wants to use it, maybe a risk to break, or maybe they are fine with it because, let's say, is simpler. That's it. Try it, contribute it, learn with us. That's it. Next slide.
Yep.
Okay, that's probably the other question about, okay, so
I'll go ahead and take this slide. So one of the things that we found worried about when we forked Eudev to Eudev was that we would diverge from Eudev and make incompatible changes and make it so that all the stuff that supports Eudev, we would split, that we would just make it incompatible. But we are aiming to keep ABI compatibility with Eudev as much as possible, as long as it does not interfere with some of our longer term goals. And yeah, that's simple. So when we initially forked Eudev, we did a code refactor because the combined code base between systemd and Eudev was something that we did not like it being combined as it was. We wanted it to be simpler, smaller, more agile. Funny. So we remade the build system. We found that the build system for systemd Eudev was not very well. It's not necessarily that it was fast. It was, I believe, one of the initial complaints was that we had to build systemd in order to build Eudev.
yes. It was a complaint, but it wasn't true. Well, you have to share code. You can decide if the share code is systemd or share code. But since the namespace is systemd, well, I would call it systemd. So yes, you need to build systemd, at least part of it, at least logging stuff, at least whatever that is in the shared directory.
So you're not building the shared file anymore, so your Eudev version doesn't use any of the shared file.
So
We replaced some
So-
part.
the question was, do we build the stuff in the shared directory of systemd Eudev? I believe what happened is we just refactored the code and it's not a shared directory anymore since it's just Eudev. We stripped.
You renamed the directory.
No. We didn't rename the direct. Well, we have a slide on that. Yes. Yeah, we're building the same code. Well,
Building the same amount of code. But not in parallel anymore. Yeah, no, slower. You're building it slower with the same amount of code.
Not really.
You turned like the one makefile into many. So you turned the single makefile and top directory into a recursive build system, which basically means every single directory now needs to be built in one step, and then you build the next one rather than everything in parallel.
this was just.
I
Oh.
mean, the original file was done by a Java developer.
Yeah, have another chocolate. So this was just the. So I'm trying to get through all the slides, and hopefully most of the slides will answer some of the questions.
Well, actually, if you have many questions on the build system, you probably should ask Lunes, because he is the one that did most of the work in that aspect. So my recommendation is that you use ping Lunes on Freenode, and he will be able to answer any questions you have, probably better than all of us together. Okay?
So part of the reason that we forked Eudev is to support legacy systems. And we can do that with just via configure flags. It's just more make stuff. So, legacy? Oh, the old style of Eudev rules. Anyway. So one of the things that we're working on is to monitor and to monitor mounts so that when rules depend on stuff that are within those mounts, we re-trigger and I guess reinitialize the Eudev rules or whatever. Or whatever. So an init system?
Yeah, looks like it.
Oh,
That's what system is, right? This thing that can actually watch mounts.
Yes. So
but we don't want to force systemd to be one package. We want to support things like OpenRC, Upstart, other init systems. So we
So you turn Eudev into systemd so that you don't have to use systemd?
so we pulled we're pulling a couple of features out of systemd that are useful. They're good. Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure we'll need it. Mouse.
escape, man.
So, as Len did some time ago in his blog, we also want to cover some myths that have been spread around UDEP. We'd like to note that when the UDEP started, we didn't got any request for an interview from the media. Actually, we only got one, but didn't have enough time to answer it back then because we were on a really short deadline with the Gentoo Council. So there is a lot of food and myths that have been spread out, both about UDEP and about UDEP, and that at least for our side, we'd like to clear out the ones involving UDEP. And if we have time, we'd like if Leonard takes the stand and tries to clear the ones involving UDEP that we might have spread. Yeah, really, do it. Don't be afraid. One myth around there is that we are a hate-based fork. I think quite obvious by now that not. That's not the case. We have nothing in particular against systemd or UDEP. We have nothing in particular against Leonard, Case, Greg. Indeed, we have. And okay, let me take one that goes on the hit because this is not working well. Yeah. It's getting crazy. Better? Or better? Yeah. Cool. So, indeed, we tried to cover some necessities that we had back then. They were not all related to UDEP itself. Some of them were related to how we packaged it. But for example, we want to let our users be able to use the latest videos in UDEP whilst using old kernels. Okay, old. Let's define old. For example, something like 2.6.32, which is already 31. Actually, it's 31, but the 32, if I recall correctly, is the last maintained kernel that we have in our trees. So we'd like people to be able to use most of the UDEP stuff with all kernels if they can. Well, that's slightly a lie. It shouldn't be stated like that. About UDEP doesn't support certain system layouts. Actually, it's our old way of packaging UDEP doesn't support certain system layouts. Yeah, we have there is users with large deployments depending on that one, and we want them to be able to use new versions. There is also that UDEP remove on default rules. Yeah, this covers mostly the legacy stuff that we said. I mean, things like, for example, the old naming or network interfaces and other similar stuff that we'd like at least to have around for some time. It might not work well, but we are trying our best there. And then there is the fact that Udep is merged on systemd, and well, there is no long-term support for a standalone Udep. We read that comment on Leonard saying back then, I'm not sure if you will stand by it now, saying in the future everything should be systemd and nothing else, and Udep won't be a separate project. That was one of the reasons why we started the fork back then. Well, we have a lot of users that are happy with OpenRC indeed. So we'd like them to be able to keep using Udep, even if they are using OpenRC. Then there is the copyright fiasco. I think it's the chance. Please throw me a stone. It was me. It was my fault. This stuff was basically a really big misunderstanding about laws and stuff like that. Since we were forking Udep, I planned on preparing some copyright headers for files. So yeah, they instead depended on the Gentoo Foundation because as Gentoo developers, our work goes there. And when I had done it after 2 or 3 hours reading every freaking C and H file in order to check the copyright headers, which by the way you could standardize, it could help a lot because there were different formats depending on each file. And so, well, I finally got the commit, a really big commit. I pushed it to my personal branch, and since I was tired as hell, I went to sleep. There was people monitoring our tree as if we were going to break hell laws. There was people monitoring my branch, which only had that commit. And yes, although we never merged that into trunk, and it never got into main Udep, and it never got outside of that trunk, we got a lot of media bombing and a lot of complaints on that topic. So please accept my apologies on that aspect for doing stupid things on public branches, and I'm sorry for that. Then we have the code removal. Yes, Udep started as a learning project, and everybody knows that the best way to know how a computer works is removing pieces until you see it won't work anymore. So we tried to do a similar thing. We started removing pieces of Udep. We have only 10 minutes, thank you. We started removing pieces of Udep until we had something that was as close to the core of Udep as we could. We tried to rebuild that pieces as we could in order to learn how they work. And well, actually we want to put back everything that we removed, or most of the stuff that we removed, slowly once we have learned how it works. Please take into account that Udep is a project with a really long history. It has a freakingly lot of features, and we are new here. I mean, it's hard for us to learn everything on a single go. So we want to go step by step. And yeah, another complaint is that the developers are inexperienced. Yeah, we are. We freakingly are. I mean, that's not a myth. We are inexperienced when it comes to Udep. We have never touched Udep before. Yeah, we are. But there is a few things. We have contributed to other projects. We already have some experience developing other stuff. And we are careful in what we commit. We try to prevent stupid stuff like the one we did when we began. And we learned, really. I mean, there is a lot of bad habits that we had when we started that are not there anymore. Like, for example, committing without reviewing. And yes, we are open to discussion. I mean, our way is probably not the best one. Our way is probably not the only one. But we will try to defend it, but we will respect the fact that there are other ways of doing stuff. After all, this is how free software works. You don't like something, you fork it, you try to get as far as you can. Worst case, everything gets merged. Sorry. Worst case, everything gets merged back into the original rank. Or if nothing gets merged, well, the project is dead and nothing has happened and nobody cares. Or vice versa, the other project takes over, the old one tries to merge with the original one, and we are happy and we try to be together. That's not a problem. And well, that's a myth that I really hate. They say that Udep is Gentoo. No, I mean, come on. For starters, we still keep recommending using Udep instead of Udep in Gentoo. In order to make a big change like removing Udep from Gentoo, we would need the support of the council, and that's not going to happen. Udep indeed is to Gentoo the same as Udep is to Gentoo the same as it is to GitHub. We use user infrastructure. Yeah, we are developers, so what? I mean, that's like saying that everything Leonard says, it's said by systemd. No, he's also a person. He has personal opinions that might not be the same of the project. And in general, well, yes, we are a Gentoo project, which means that we use Gentoo infrastructure. We are Gentoo developers, but we are not Gentoo. So, yeah, oh, I really like that one. We are the definitive solution to bar user on a separate partition. Yeah, no, we aren't. I mean, there are things that might still be broken. There is stuff that happens. But we are going to try is to make it as little problematic for the users as we can from our side. It might work well, it might work bad, we'll see. By your face, I say you are saying it's not at all. Well,
It might work
in some cases. We are going to try our best in that
but
aspect.
you are promising things you cannot.
I'm not promising it. I'm saying we are going to try it.
You make the impression to promise that.
No, I'm not promising that we are going to fix it. Please note it down. We don't promise at all we are going to fix all the cases on bar user or even most of them. All I can promise is that we are going to try.
Okay.
And we'll see. Hopefully we do it. In the worst case, well, we get a wall there and we stamp ourselves. Yeah. So I think that covers everything. Is there any more questions or anything you want to ask us?
It is, yes. Well, I don't quite have questions, but I would have something to add. This project, the Eudev, was made, I believe so, that was made for every distro to not listen to Leonard's code. Am I right?
No?
Okay. Listen, I mean by listen to use it. So everybody thinks Leonard's code is awful. Everybody thinks that. Don't worry. It's just a thing. Some, or at least some of them. Well, the thing is, there are
Well,
many.
Can I just say one thing?
Yes.
If you want to see awful code, go to my webpage. You have a code from when I was on the first course of the career. Then you will see awful code.
Oh,
Okay?
okay, perfect. The idea is there are some developers out there in all other distros that are still interested in the old standards of Eudev. And I'm sure of it. Some of them usually come in Gentoo Eudev to ask, well, I need our AUR package from Arch for Eudev. I need the deb package. I need the RPM package. Well, the question is, why not having an alternative to systemd? That's my question.
We actually have it.
Of course,
I mean,
you are.
there is a lot of things that are not systemd and that are still in its systems out there. Well, okay, systemd is not an init system, it does more stuff. But we use different packages to do everything that systemd does. Yeah.
The idea is to have a valid Eudev system. I mean, to have a working Eudev system, and to be honest. To be honest, as far as I've seen, the USR was not quite well integrated in Eudev. Am I right?
The what? Can you repeat?
I mean, the user feature / user feature is not currently working in Eudev. Am I right?
Correct.
Depends.
No.
It's still being developed.
It's still in the works.
So, yeah, so
Okay.
No,
Okay.
no, just yeah.
Ah, okay, works.
Who is doing all the main code of the project?
Well, wait a moment. First,
Yes. Yeah, of course.
these slashes are stuff. Is just a small little feature that requires more packaging coordination than just changing some little code here and there. And as I say, it's not just saying, okay, from tomorrow we will support it, because you have a number of issue and a number of
Yeah, it's
non-issue.
okay.
The non-issue is you are having that, you have a server that is completely static. Okay, you can even do without Eudev from start.
Okay.
Some people need some bit of Eudev for whatever reason, then you have to make sure that that bit doesn't require /usr, and it is as simple as that.
Okay.
How to do that? You have a number of ways, but it's not exactly depending on just this bit. It's something that is more all-encompassing.
It's okay.
Yeah,
I've understood.
lots of people are still pestering us about it. So, okay, we will have a look about it because there are people that are interested. You know, open source, you have an itch, you scratch it. So we got people that are quite focused on that because they have large deploy that they use whichever strange architecture. So they will try to contribute to this project. You want to contribute to this project? We are quite happy to have you join.
Are you interested in cooperation with other distros?
Obviously, yes. One of the myths is that this project is a Gen 2 project, meaning that just Gen 2 does stuff. No, it's a Gen 2 project just because
So
we are
it's mainly for other distros to also cooperate on EUDev if they're interested in making the alternative with using of alternative of EUDev, right?
Yes, actually, we do have bugs involving Arch Linux that we are trying to resolve. And if, for example, well, I see that there is a person with a Ubuntu t-shirt over there. If you also want to have Udep and you have problems, you are welcome to open bugs. We are going to try our best on fixing them. And if you want to join the project, you can also do that.
One last question, one last word. If you are trying to seek cooperation with other distros, how will you represent it?
I believe that's how do you report bugs? Okay. So although we're a Gentoo project, the source code and most of the bug tracking is taking place in the GitHub. You just open a bug in GitHub. You don't what? Oh, so initially when we first forked the project, we tried to focus on just getting the code base sane and working. So we focus mainly on Gentoo since we're mostly Gentoo developers. As we grow and as we get everything more stable, we hope to work with other distributions to have UDEV working with them as well.
Okay, new question. You said you're hoping for people to contribute to your project, and it's like you expect that to be or become a community project, and you want to learn from the code base, and you consider forking the right way and to work with an existing community project. Have you actually thought about one thing? Here's the question: have you actually thought about approaching this by just cloning the existing UDIF, making a branch that has your features on it, like a regular distribution branch, and then trying to submit those back to the upstream project just by sending merge requests, and that way also you're working together with the existing UDEV maintainers, and you actually learn from their experience before you have to make a lot of cock-ups yourself and learn the slow and hard way.
So I'll go ahead and respond to this initially, at least. So part of the reason that we refactored the code is to just make it simpler. I don't know how to explain it very well. I'm sorry. But I forget the part of the question. Oh, yes. There are a few patches. For instance, one of the reasons that we forked is because some of the accept for stuff was not accepted upstream. So
You know that maybe for the accept for stuff it's easier for the accept for stuff. For the except for stuff, maybe it's nicer to just fix the libc in question rather than walking around in 10 projects, which you said, or 20. I mean, it's just a question. Maybe you should fix the problems where they are, and instead of working around in as many projects as there are that use that, just fix it in one project where the bug actually is. It's usually
What you mean exactly?
I mean, you guys are referring to the except for thing. There was a fuck up on some architectures in libc where basically the libc wasn't in sync with what the kernel exported.
So, well, there are other.
I mean, it's open source. You can fix it everywhere.
Sure.
It's
there
not
are-
only us.
But yeah,
waiting for it.
if you have the problem of integrating the whole thing, sometimes you have people that are stuck with something that is not that optimal. So you have to be, well, realistic. And yes, obviously you would like to fix a problem where it is, but workarounds are what make stuff working.
Well, define optimal. Sometimes that's real world. So
I was just saying, is that what a distribution branch is for? I mean, every distribution out there has patches to upstream packages. And, you know, that's a very common way of working, where distribution differences are handled in those circumstances. And if there's a problem with a package, why don't you patch it, you know, in your libc in the right place in the distribution or whatever? Or if you need a workaround and you need to put it into Eudev for your users' needs, then just put it there. It's not a crazy situation, really.
Actually, we like to think of Eudev as a patched version of Eudev. I mean, yeah, we have changed the code base. Right now it's almost impossible to track stuff from Eudev to Eudev and vice versa. But we were thinking of it as our own version of Eudev with the patches we wanted to see there. So it's not that different from what you said, actually.
Well, it kind of is in a way, because by approaching the project in that way, you're almost consciously and deliberately creating some kind of division, rather than working how distributions have always worked for many years, which is to carry these patches, push upstream the ones that they can, and carry the ones that they can't in their downstream packages. But by sort of announcing it as a sort of public project and sort of taking it down that route rather than going down the sort of more traditional route, it's almost creating division by its very nature.
Well, actually, we don't think that forking creates division. I mean, forking will only create division if there is no communication between the sites that have forked at the original project. We are actually trying our best to remove that division from our project, and we are trying our best to communicate between us and people on Eudev. And that's indeed one of the reasons why I personally sent an invite to these guys over here to come, because we want to show them that we don't hate them, that we want to communicate with them.
Did you just say that through the refactoring that you did, it's almost impossible to port something from one project to the other? I mean, communication
yes.
not only happens with words, but also with code. And if your main achievement is like making it incompatible, I mean, I don't see that much changes. The biggest change is that it has gotten more or less incompatible with the initial upstream. So
one thing is that our project is not directly compatible with Eudev, as in the sense of we have made more refactoring. You cannot port a patch directly from one side to the other. Another different idea is that the ideas we apply or the systems we apply cannot be used on Eudev because the basis is still the same. And probably just by changing some paths and using slightly different functions, you can get it done as on Eudev.
yeah, but I think you should be very careful about if you think of the future of your project, you should try to not add more division for very little reason. Let's put it this way.
Well, actually, we are trying our best not to increase that divide we already created. Think that despite our project being, how much, 3 months old, something like that? Yeah, 3 months old. It started as some sort of regulation thing, And anybody that knows a little bit of politics knows that revolutions suck, are probably the best thing in the world, the worst thing in the world, because basically after a revolution you just try to get things fixed fast, badly, and patch stuff that you shouldn't patch. And in the end, you end up with things that are hard to maintain or hard that or things that are bad. But our aim is that at least when we get to a stable branch, we have as little change from UDEP as possible. Sorry, from UDEP as possible.
Okay. Hi, my name is Michael. I'm working for the Debian project. First, some observation. I mean, the name Eudev probably wasn't the best choice of word or name for your project. I mean, half of the time, if you're talking about your project or the original project, just an observation. So,
Well, that's fine. One is systemd, the other is Eudev. Easy.
yeah, but just saying. I mean, it wasn't exactly clear when you were talking about what. So, specifically the topic about /user or separate /user. I mean, I'm coming from Debian. There's also sorts of talk about how we have to support that, and I know the difficulties that brings that entails. And I mean, you also talked about KISS, and I think if you look about the idea to just use the init.rd to mount /user, and you solve all those problems for free, that is just so compelling. Or I mean, the easiest way obviously is to not use a separate /user. But if you just take those two sets and see which users are there which don't want to have an init.rd or which don't want to have a /user. I mean, there aren't that many, and having to complicate things that much for such some, I don't know. I mean, maybe you have a magic idea how you solve this in your Eudev rules. I mean, how exactly do you want to do that? Do you take the binary, look if that's in /user, and then defer the rules? Or, I mean, how do you know if a binary, which even is in /bin, but needs resources from other parts of the system in /user? How is this supposed to work? I can't imagine how.
So
what your plans are.
a couple of questions there. One of the, I think the battery's dying. One of the reasons that we forked is to support. So out of 100% of the systems out there, we want to support as many of them as possible. Just for instance, pulling a number out of a hat. Systemd Eudev supports 95%, just a number. We aim to support 98%. We're just trying to get those few users. We're trying to support them as best as we can. Some users are not able to use init.rds. Embedded systems a lot of the time, from what I...
Do you really think embedded systems have a complicated layout with separate /user, for example?
Yes.
I don't think so.
For example,
that's what I'm talking about, the set of users.
No, but for example, we have a lot of users that have servers with really constrained and separated by boot partitions. Those people who would have a really hard time getting an init.rd that would take like 10, 20 megabytes that they cannot use in the system. I mean, I have a friend there in Valencia, for example, that is still using a Pentium 2.
And some people don't want to use init.rd, so what? Like, you know, that RHEL and all these distributions for businesses, everything init.rd.
Well, so what?
Battery's dead.
Okay, battery's dead. So what? That's the main point. It's not. So what? We got somebody that has this itch and wants to scrap. As simple as that. It's not a matter of, oh God, you're wasting time or whatever. It's just somebody that has this problem, wants a solution.
How many people have this problem? One?
I don't know.
Is that enough?
If the guy wants to work on that, so be it.
So is that one guy hypothetical, or did you actually need him?
There is one.
Well, think of it in this way. How many people has the problem? Let's say one. And you push the next version that makes a lot of trouble for that one user. You think that one user is going to say good things about you? You said you are having problems with food. You said you are having problems with food. Why do you think they happen? I mean, if by pushing something you are doing a user have a bad user experience, he is not only going to not try not to use your project. He's also going to say the worst things on Word on your project. And if somebody says something bad to him, even if it's not true, he's going to be a big amplifier saying that. So if the effort it takes to make that user not angry, it's not that much. Let's do it. Why not?
Or let's make another item, like kernel 2.6.32. Yes, there are many systems that are using that and are stuck with that. Shall we support them or not? The answer is yes. But if we can, why not?
So one simple question. One is for the systemd developers, and the other one is for the Eudev developers. So the question is the same. And why did you decide to drop support for older kernels? And why did you decide to put the support for older kernels back in? Thank you.
Okay. Who wants to go first?
So we decided. I have a chocolate. We decided to support. We decided to support the older kernels because I have a friend that needs support for the older kernels. That's part of the reason.
And then we have these users with OpenBZ that can only use the 2.6.32.
Okay. Which one of you wants to answer?
When you upgrade a system, you upgrade everything. You cannot always keep backward compatibility for everything. As someone who changes the kernel all the time, we break old user space in ways that you don't know because you upgraded other packages. You can't do it. Your maintainability of things over time, it's good to drop things and put them away.
So total patch set was not able to be upgraded to a newer kernel.
If you're not able to upgrade a newer kernel, how did you upgrade Eudev?
They wanted to.
Well, there is, for example, a reason why you would want to upgrade Eudev. Let's go a few years back. There was this nice race condition issue in Eudev that could be exploited in order to get root access by some strange theming stuff. I'm not sure if it was Eudev or fcron, but it was one of those two packages that had this issue. Then you have an old kernel which you cannot upgrade because they have stopped giving support or whatever, and you have that version of Eudev. Would you like to be able to?
Okay. So we have to leave, so we will discuss probably outside. But the short version for that. Okay, people want some software that uses the new libudev that requires the new Eudev, and they are stuck with that kernel, and the system is like a set-top box, multimedia stuff, and you really want the new version of the software. So what you do? You try to ripple up and fix all the users of libudev, so everything is sort of okay, and then you do again for the other stuff, or you ripple down, and if you can't touch the kernel, you try to touch the stuff that is the closest in that chain that you actually would like to upgrade. So kernel is banned. Eudev, maybe not, because it's quite simple.
Well, I'd like to say one last thing. It's an Android phone with Cyanogen Mod 11. It's the 4.2.1 version, and it uses a 2.6.39 kernel because the developers of the phone don't want to update it. Huh? No, it doesn't have Eudev in there. But the point I'm trying to say is that there are users that still need older kernels because maybe the manufacturer is stupid enough not to support them.
You know, the one thing, like the original question, is why we don't support that. It's like, it's not that we only support the most recent. We support like a couple of them, like back 1.5 years or so. But the thing is, we try simple, clean code that is reliable, and we always want to fix the problems where they are. So in order to keep simples, no, you know, you have to keep always the compatibility forever. It's like it makes your code, you need to deal with if devs, you need to deal with all these bugs. And this thing is also, it's about a question about the test matrix, basically. Like, if you want to support all the possible combinations of software in any version ever, then you explode your test matrix, and you actually need to make sure that it all works together. And that's a thing we can't really do. I don't know, it's a question of keeping your code simple or not. We tend to not want to have that many if devs, for example, in our stuff, and we're pretty good at that. And then, for example, for the accept for stuff that they were raising is, yeah, we think that the accept for stuff is something you much better fix in libc once, and it works for every tool, then fix it in every tool, like work around in every tool, and have the if devs and have the configure checks and have the implementation accept for. It's just the way to work. And now you can say, of course, yeah, I don't know. It's basically, we like our code simple and maintainable and clean, and that you can read it, and that there's no if stuff, there's no side effects that you can't see, there's no non-obvious stuff that we can't test. I want to be sure that when I compile systemd, that I actually compile test that is in the systemd tree. But I can't do that if there's tons of if devs and tons of optional code that is used on some systems but not on mine. So it's a question about I don't know, with systemd we are relatively fast in developing things, and the way we do this is by making sure that we can test the stuff as we go and be reliable in that. If you have all this abstraction code, like it's the same question as about portability to other operating systems. If you have all the abstraction code in there, then you always need to make sure that it also works on the other operating systems, everything. So it's a question about, yeah.